Just because someone says call back and take me off the list, that's sure as hell not a lead. Here's a lead. A lead is someone who's willing to sell their home in 12 months. If they're willing to have a conversation with you, it doesn't matter whether they're priced right. It doesn't matter whether their logic or rationale is right in terms of, whether they want the right number. It's, are they willing to sell? If that's the case, now it's a lead. Make sense? There's a callback ratio, right? That isn't leads, that's callbacks. That's where I disagree with what Sean said, which is just because someone says call back and take me off the list, that's sure as hell not a lead. That's someone saying take me off your list. But does it play into your callback ratio? Yes. Now, there are two different types of leads. People who don't want anything rational, right? They're like, oh, everything's for sale for $1 million. And you're like, all right, dude, I get it. Then you try to figure out, okay, where do you really want to sell? And they become unrealistic leads, right? Or unworkable, meaning maybe it's not as extreme as that. Maybe the example is the home retail sells for 200, but they want 350. And you're like, how in the hell do you get to the number 350? Why are you, and the question is, why do you want that number? And then they make up their excuses. But the reality is they're 150 grand over retail. So they're unworkable. There's not even a benchmark for them to get there, right? You couldn't even do a seller carry back at that number and make it work, right? So that is an unworkable lead. Then you have workable leads. Those are people that are halfway rational, halfway motivated, that you could actually work to a number that could get to a deal that you could do, right? So let me give you our numbers. For every, I'm going to keep it a little easier just so the math works out a little cleaner, right? So if we send out 10,000 mail pieces, we're going to get roughly we'll get a true callback ratio of 1%. We'll get a true callback ratio of 1%, right? So it's 100 calls. Out of those 100 calls, 50% of those 100 calls, so 50 of them, are take me off your list, I hate you, they're the FUs, right? So now I'm down to 50 real calls. Out of those 50 real calls, half of those are going to be unworkable, the other half are going to be workable. So if you send out 10,000, you get 100 real calls, right? So far, you're correct on that. 100 real calls. And then 75% of those are take me off your list. So now you're down to 35. Well, if you're saying you got 120 calls, you're down to 35 real calls. And out of the 35 real calls, I'm assuming half of those are unworkable. I want $1 bajillion for my home that's worth 200. And then the other half are workable, right?